Hey everyone, so I want to go over diet myth number one. If you're not losing weight, you're not working out hard enough, and why this is a myth, but then also the relationship of weight loss versus mental health and actually how the chemistry affects both. So I want to start with the prefacing it and asking the question, how many of you would like to have a simpler way to lose weight? I feel like all of us would raise our hand, right? But at the same time, it's just understanding why is the process so hard and why do we make it hard? So really trying to break down the difference between the two, how to make it simpler for us, but then also how to relate it to why maybe some people have issues with mental health and the chemistry within our body and how it affects our brain. So, real simple, starting to look at the body in general and just try to maybe simplify it for y'all. One of the things that I think is a key factor in weight loss in general and or mental health, and this could be I don't go too detailed in these two, but for the fact is everyone in life does everything for one reason and one reason only, and that's because they feel like it, right? But you have to kind of think about this, like what is it that makes us feel like doing something? So there's something that they always preach on or maybe coach on or really try to get us motivated for something, and that is mindset. So when we try to think about mindset, what is it that we're doing to really affect our mindset? Because at the end of the day, when we know that we have a good mindset, it affects our ability to go out and be successful with a certain skill set. So then we can learn to process stuff, learn new ideas, learn how to go out and be productive. Thus, we have the ability to go to grab out new tool set to be what we call maybe entrepreneurs, successful in our business, or just general active in the community. So mindset affects the skill set, it affects the tool set for us to go out and be productive. And what has to happen first, so is how do we even get that mindset in the first place? Well, a lot of people may think, well, it is because of repetition of doing something, or maybe we go learn a piece of material. And I would say that is definitely adds to the piece of it. But at the end of the day, there's got to be something more to it because it's a common issue that a lot of people suffer from, and it's actually the same reason that people suffer from weight loss. And so having the understanding that you don't have to go out and do physical work to meaning like go work out to the point where you injure yourself, you have more pain, and understanding that that's not the way, the path of actually getting true success in weight loss. Then we have to say, well, what's controlling the mindset? And I would say the first is always asking, what's the problem here? What is actually mindset in the first place? What controls mindset? And that's going to be our chemistry. And so kind of backtracking, there's a couple things we look at when our chemistry of the body, and there are three main things that stand out. And there's going to be probably more obviously that people deal with, but for the most part, three of the more common ones. And these are going to be simple things you've probably heard before, but it's just relating it to understanding the process. So when you know which pieces to look at, then you have a better idea of how to actually go about taking action, meaning like, where am I falling short? Maybe what are the steps that I can jump into and say, yeah, I knew that, but it wasn't actually the steps that I was paying attention to, right? Because a lot of times, even though we know about something, that doesn't mean we know how to, or we know from doing it. It's just we've learned it. We've learned thinking that our brain is already, subconsciously saying, we already know how to do it when we really actually have never done it, right? And so go through the steps and understand this is we're going to go from level one and looking at what are the three parts of the brain. And so first off, we have to understand there are different parts of the brain that get activated at different times. And so how do we actually, I would say, how do we actually affect these? And so the question of going back to the chemistry is going to be one, from diet, nutrition. Two, it's going to be from maybe toxins that we've been exposed to. And then three, stressors in our life. And so when you can kind of look at all these, you could say, well, yeah, that could affect weight loss, or that could affect mental health. And you start to understand the chemistry of it. When we look a little bit more in depth and say, okay, well, how does this actually relate to the health of the brain and how it actually gives us that ability to make those decisions, right? And so then we look at more of the different areas of the brain. We look at which parts are the ones that are the decision makers, which ones are actually keeping us motivated, which ones are just keeping us on the right track and ability to make those concentrated decisions. And so the first part is going to be what is it that even keeps us alive, right? And so the first brain is going to be your reptile brain. This is the part that controls our regulation as far as your temperature goes. Whether you get hot or cold, it also affects our nervous system. So the autonomic nervous system, meaning something that happens when we're not even paying attention to this. So we need this, we need this to really activate. But here's the problem is that part of the brain actually starts to consume energy. And so if we're not careful with it and we don't have enough energy throughout the day, then what's going to be left over the other two parts of the brain? Well, the second one is going to be what we call the limbic brain, which is more like your emotional system. So it's easier kind of maybe at thinking about this as your Labrador brain. So it's like the puppy dog brain. Whenever someone sees something, it's kind of like, it's going off of emotions first. Maybe you see something that looks good and attractive that, you want to eat. And all of a sudden it reminds you of maybe a different event or a different experience that you had. And all of a sudden you're like, I need that, or I'm getting these cravings. And so it doesn't have to be that we always maybe smell it, or even we use our different senses. We have different senses. It could be touch, it could be taste, smell. We could hear something, and these start to trigger these effects. And so all of a sudden, our bodies are starting to crave something. And if we don't have the ability to turn that off, these cravings overcome true hunger. So it's not always that we have this true hunger. Majority of us maybe have maybe eaten within the last 10 minutes, last hour, 2 hours that day sometime. So it's more of a craving, and it's more that Labrador brain kicking in, saying from the emotional side, the limbic brain saying, I need that. So what ends up happening is it triggers the sympathetic system to where it increases our blood pressure, our heart rate gets up, we get excited about something. When you get excited about something, you anticipate something positive, right? And so you actually get more attracted to it. And so you actually go out and maybe you eat that food, or you think you need it because you need to calm down that extra excitement, that energy that you just basically that you used up, right? Or that you're using. But before we know this, that first part, the reptile brain, and then we went into the limbic brain, we used up a majority of our energy to the point where we don't have enough left over for the decision maker, which is going to be the one that makes the decisions for us. And that's going to be the front part of the brain that actually is the one that controls everything. And so if we don't have enough energy to go in there and really have control over everything, the decision maker is going to say, you know what, I'm fatigued, I don't have enough energy left over, sorry, peace out. And so all of a sudden we keep making these bad decisions. And so really kind of looking back and trying to say, what is it that led us into making these decisions in the first place? Why do I keep having this struggle? And that's what affects willpower, your ability to overcome that. And so a lot of times maybe someone says, what, it's just that person's just lazy, they're not working out hard enough. Well, I would venture to say there are certain circumstances that is the case, that maybe they didn't put in that physical effort. They didn't go out and then try to achieve something, or they didn't go try to work out or do the activity that's required. But a lot of times, if it's a consistent thing and you start to see a pattern and this person truly is trying, then what's happened is their ability to overcome, their ability to make that willpower, that decision to overcome that decision, whether it's a certain food, just eating at different times of the day, or just in general losing weight, then what's happening is they have something wrong with their chemistry. And so that is truly a condition, and it's called disconnect syndrome. And what ends up happening is there's not a good connection from basically internally within our body to the brain saying, go and to make these decisions to shut off. So chemically, there's something that to be said about it, because here's the deal: is if you keep thinking that you're going to solve losing weight by working out, you're basically you're running in circles, meaning you're going to physically burn out. And so here's a level. So there's 4 levels to understanding this, meaning to kind of preface this, the first level is level of implementation, to where you work out, like you physically give all your effort and your strength. But what ends up happening is, because of this, you end up burning out all your energy, you lose your passion and your ability to move forward. And so by thinking that you can solve this with physical effort, meaning going to the gym, working out harder, basically what you're going to do is you're going to lose all your energy, you're going to burn out, and you're going to cause pain, more suffering, and maybe even an injury. Thus, you're left still with a problem, and you still don't have that willpower to overcome it. And so that's where you'll see a lot of people, they burn out with these programs, and they don't have the success they want with losing weight because they've never really mastered the chemistry within their body. And so to do this in the first place, you have to understand that the first level was the level of implementation. The second level is unification, where you really you start to, you maybe get some ground, like you start to get some traction, but then you're still struggling to try to maintain. So overcoming this to the point where, we climb out to that next level of having that teamwork, that ability of someone to help pull us out of that last one, the essence where we desire, like we have that desire where you've hit your goal and you're achieving what you want. Then the 4 levels really back it up with completeness. So I understand the number of 4 is complete. So there's 4 corners to the earth. There's 4 winds. There's 4 directions, north, south, east, and west. And really understanding that there's also 4 hormones that make us feel good. You're going to have your dopamine, your serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. And so each one has a different purpose within the body and the chemistry. And when you understand the number 4, the number that is actually in the Bible is known for completeness, where, from the sun, the universe, and actually everything was completed. Then we understand that we can back this up with truth. And when you have truth, you have understandings of the principles and laws of nature. So when you go against the laws of nature, you can't defy actually the reasoning behind it. And then you have more clarity on the direction that you're going. So earlier when I started my talk saying, if you have that ability to understand the process and the path, then you're not going to venture off and you're not going to get lost, right? And so you gotta have to backtrack and start to really define what are the different steps. Where am I getting caught? Where am I losing out? Where am I not seeing the pieces? Like which pieces are actually missing? So when you start to backtrack and you say, no, it's the chemistry. The chemistry is off. It's causing me to not have the willpower to make that decision, to make that conscious effort to go out and do it. Then you start to realize there's something that's not working. So we go back again to the very first three things that were actually offsetting most people. And this can affect all ages. This can affect kids. This can affect adults. This can affect geriatrics. And the cycle starts to become actually very, it differentiates for each person depending on their age and their ability to function. So let me just give you an example here. So for example, we'll have a lot of clients maybe sometimes that come in because it may be a mixture of chronic pain. They're on medications that they've been on for years. Maybe they've had surgeries. Maybe they've gone through different illnesses or diseases. And at that point in their life, because of the chronic medication, because of the deficiencies of the body to actually operate and their disease, their cellular health, their body's ability to actually function is out of whack. Their chemistry is totally off. That's why they're on maybe 10 or 15 different medications. They're suffering from not being able to sleep. They got extra pain. They got inflammation. They've got weight gain, the depression, anxiety, everything sets in. Like it's a really emotional roller coaster, right? And so the whole time, that whole limbic brain is just thrown off. It's chaotic. So then you come in and the decision maker, the frontal cortex, the front part of the brain, that is actually the one that's most important to making the clear decisions, deciding what's complex, meaning how do we break down complex situations, like that is making proper decisions throughout the day to execute, to be able to be successful with whatever endeavor we're doing. Then we can't do that. We can't differentiate what's good versus bad. We can't go and say, from an emotional standpoint, we don't have the ability to control our emotions, and all of a sudden that person is going to be in a constant state of confusion. And so whenever there's confusion, there's never a sense of clarity. Like they don't know which direction to go, and they just keep doing the same thing over and over and over, and they get the same result over and over and over, right? And so they just kind of have this lull look on them and a state of confusion, and so they're just left with fear, with anxiety and doubt. And so when you have all these, then it's just it's a chaotic situation, right? So how do you backtrack? How do you get out of that? So first off is you got to really start to kind of again look at why did this person get in this place in the first place? And it's going again to what does their diet consist of? And I'm not going to say like everyone's going to like all of a sudden have this significant change in their life by just changing their diet. But if you understand that the food that we eat is actually when it gets broken down into our stomach and our intestines, gets thrown into the bloodstream, everything that we put into our body is the chemistry. It basically what lets the chemistry thrive, the environment. It's kind of like within your, if you had a fish tank growing up, or if you ever had a swimming pool, and if the acidity got off, the pH level got off level, things were out of control. You had mold, you had whatever, a moss stuff growing in there, the fish died. Well, that's what's happening internally to someone's body. And that may sometimes, because of our body being very resilient, we may not see the side effects right away, but it ends up happening internally over a period of time. And because of the time period that it happens, we don't see the actual end result for maybe years or decades. And unfortunately, by that time, it goes from seeing those subtle signs of maybe fatigue, headache, not sleeping well, to they get symptoms of maybe weight gain, depression, anxiety, to where they're using over-counter medication, to even possible maybe surgeries. So they get those impairments. They lost the ability to function because of the lack of strength, lack of range of motion, just inability to have functional movement, to the point where there is chronic disease, chronic pain, and chronic depression. And it affects everything. And so understand the process and the steps and systems that you can do to actually get these start to connect again. You go back again to the food, the diet, what that consists of, because this alters your chemistry. The toxins maybe that you have been exposed to, whether you consistently you expose yourself to them, or maybe it was not intentional, but it actually just happened to get presented to you over your life period, which again, these are just understanding that there are detox methods that you want to get consistent with in order to get these out of your system, to the point where you're also stressors, and I say stressors, like what's stressing you out right now, but what was also in your past history. So what were your experiences? And maybe these were just personal experiences that you had, maybe it's an experience someone else had, but these are all basically what they call, like, it's BS. It's your belief system. Like, what do you believe, and what have you stored internally, what is your understanding of right versus wrong. And so putting these all together, it's going back to, again, you got the food, the diet, what's putting in your system that's causing the the internal chemistry within the body. Number two is going to be the toxins that you've been exposed to, how to get rid of this. And then three is going to be looking at also the stressors in the life, and these are past experiences. So this is where you start to connect the reasoning. Maybe someone has difficulty with weight loss when it becomes more of an issue of willpower, which is the same reason someone may struggle with mental health, because of their past experiences, what they're putting into their system, how it's affecting the chemistry in the brain, how it alters those decisions to the point where they get what's called disconnect syndrome. When you have disconnect syndrome, again, the prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of your brain, does not do its job. It shuts down. It says like, peace out, I'm out. I'm not going to be doing my job today. I'm out, I'm off commission. Y'all go figure it out. So when you leave things unintended, then what ends up basically happening is you have what they call the law of inertia, where anything left unintended becomes of its own, and it can get out of nature, out of character. It's kind of like if you didn't go, for example, if you didn't go pull the weeds in your yard, and all of a sudden the yard grew with weeds, and you just have this horrible looking lawn, then that's the same thing that happens within your body internally. So if you don't actually pay attention to this stuff and address it at the first, then it can grow and it can become chaotic. So again, going back to the first part of why someone cannot achieve this from physical, meaning if you're not losing weight, you're not working out hard enough, is because the first part of this is understanding it's not a physical result. Like, your ability to lose weight is not a physical result, it's a spiritual. And so when you connect the dots, you say, you know what affects the chemistry with my brain, the ability of when I just went over with you all the stuff that affects the chemistry, but what actually makes that chemistry work to that mindset and the connection of the two. And so here's the missing link, is understanding that your weight loss is not affected to your ability to physically perform an action, but your ability spiritually to understand and the pieces of it to connect. And so this is where you're going to have to start doing a little bit more work on another end, and understanding that this isn't going to just come overnight, but it's also putting the dots together. And so so spiritually, the brain works in mysterious ways, and the more we obviously lean into it, then the more we can actually get connected with it. And so the big piece here is understanding that, again, going back to the level of implementation, if you physically give all your strength and your effort, it basically, you end up burning out, right? And so, but spiritually, there's an abundance. There's a level of energy that, so if you understand energy in general, like, energy is all around us. It's never created nor destroyed. It transforms into different formats. And that's where you'll understand, you'll hear maybe like the electrical field around you, maybe the positives and negatives. And this could be positives and negatives in your life as far as people around you. It could be emotions. It could also be just physical versus something you can't see, something of faith, something of not of nature in general right in front of you, meaning you've never physically experienced it. So from the mental standpoint, and in order to get that chemistry of the internal part of your body to affect the brain, which is the mindset, you have to have that spiritual connection, meaning you have to be able to connect the dots. And so these are just pathways. These are systems in the body. But the cool thing is they're unlimited. There's unlimited resources, meaning you'll never run short if you understand these concepts. And so a lot of people, that's where they kind of fall short. And when they get these other, I would say, negative situations or things that are kind of meaningless to them, or just in general not going in the right path, then everything starts to seem very, I would say, muddy and unclear. And that's where people get confused, they get disoriented, and they make the wrong decisions over and over and over, right? And so that is the nice thing I always tell people is, like, if you get to the point where you feel like you've tried everything and nothing's working, well, good news is you've exhausted all this stuff that didn't work. Now turn around and go the opposite direction, and we'll do the stuff that does work, right? Because for every direction, there's an equal and opposite direction. That's called the law of polarity. And so when you have the law of polarity, then you realize, if I'm continually always going in a certain path and nothing's continually to work, then obviously I'm going in the wrong direction. I've got to redirect, right? So where does that lead us? And so when you're someone stuck in that level of willpower, the first thing I would say is, especially when it comes to losing weight, is really kind of sitting down and trying to look at their day. And I call, a lot of times I'll just to simplify it, I tell people it's basically called how to unlock your day. Like, how do you start your day? And so you start to go through the steps. Like, what is it that you consume in the morning? What do you consume throughout the day, from a nutrition standpoint, from a health standpoint, from a food standpoint? What do you consume maybe that has maybe processed stuff in it, maybe has toxins in it, maybe it's not just something you eat or drink, maybe it's something you breathe, maybe it's something you've been exposed to in your prior history, and then maybe it's even something that you don't, some of these things that you may not be able to see. So I would say one of the biggest hurdles for people overcoming this is to understand that you've got to get in some kind of a good form of a detoxification. And this can come in multiple ways, such as movement, exercise, diet, supplements, and or sweating, like getting rid of some of these toxins. So there's another talk for all this, but so again, it's what we're eating or drinking throughout the day, the toxins that we're exposed to right now, maybe we've been exposed to throughout our life, and then also the stressors. So if you can really try to define those three things and try to get clear with where you are, then you'll understand that no matter what the result is right now, that it's not going to be cleared by you working harder. Then you're starting to master the path. You're starting to realize the chemistry is more important than the physical exertion and the physical effort, even though that is still part of the process. It's just understanding that we have to get more specific on what's causing it. So if you always go back and you say what caused this in the first place, you're going to be looking in the right direction. If you try to wait till it happens and continue to fight off what's coming at you, it's kind of like, always got like playing dodgeball, then you're going to continue to struggle and burn out. So it's just flipping the switch, understanding your path and direction, and the way you approach it is just you're going back to that law of polarity. Is this you're turning the direction, and you're actually going in the opposite direction, but you're going to get a better result. And so then once you get that willpower, your ability to start making decisions is better. Again, you have a more positive direction. You start to get those positive hormones. Things start to positively affect you. You're going in a positive direction, which is on the up, not the down. Again, energy only flows to higher level than it does low level, and you actually start to climb up. It's kind of like as a plane takes off, it first has to go a little bit lower at first before it dips before it rises. Same situation here. You're going to experience a little turmoil, meaning maybe a personal conflict in your head saying this doesn't feel right, which a lot of times it's just because it's different. And when things are different, doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. It's just a different direction. And so it's okay. It's just, for example, I had a patient today, and I tell her the direction that she tried before was not working. And let's just understand like what's going on right now. It's the new normal, meaning like, it's not the normal situation that you got to be stuck in, but you have options now. You have at least once someone can know the path, then they can kind of calm down, and they don't have that feeling of anxiety, and they're not burning themselves out, meaning they have a better understanding of what they can go do because they understand, what's part of the pathway now. So getting clear in your pathway, unlocking your day, and understanding that you don't have to go work out harder to lose the weight is going to probably be a lot more relief for a lot of people. And this is going to give you a lot more, I would say, clarity in your ability to go make those decisions on how to improve. Maybe it's diet, maybe it's the food you eat, maybe it's nutrition, maybe it's the toxins you're exposed to, your ability to get rid of those toxins. And the third part, what are the stressors in your life? Is it from previous experience? Maybe this is not just a stress in your daily life. Maybe it is, but maybe it's something from a previous experience that you need to get over. Maybe you need to go see someone about, maybe you need to, explore why this happened, or why it's making you do certain things that you're doing now. So those are the top three. That's what I got for diet myth number one. If you're not working out hard enough, it's because if you're not losing weight, it's because you're not working out hard enough. And again, that's a total myth. It's because you don't have the willpower. So again, getting that willpower is all about the chemistry and how it affects the mindset. But to do that, it's a spiritual result. It's not a physical result. So hopefully that helps. And again, if this is something that y'all want to dive in deeper and have any questions on, let me know. But I definitely, I think this was a lot, I'd say a clear path for the people that were struggling, because they would always get stuck in thinking that they had to go work out harder. And at the end of the day, again, all they were doing was burning out, losing the energy, getting depressed. It was more of a depression because of the frustration, to the point where they, would obviously lead to more inflammation, more weight gain, and actually go in the opposite direction. So don't do that, right? So unlock, get out of that situation, release, and go and find your new direction. Thanks.